Welcome to our interview today. My name is Marianne Kannengießler, and with me today is Patricia. I'm very glad that she takes time to talk with us today. And dear Patricia, would you be so kind to introduce yourself, please, to those people who still do not know you?
Oh, well, my name is Patricia Hatherley, and I'm from Australia. I live in Brisbane. I'm the mother of 3 adult children and 6 lovely grandchildren. I've been a homeopath for 25 years. I've worked with mothers and babies for over 40 years, so I have a very big interest in the primal period, everything that happens from conception through to the end of weaning, and that kind of connects me to the lacs in a way. Mm-hmm. They were a kingdom I taught at college, and that's what got me very interested in them and led me to write my book, my Materia Medica and Repertory, which was an act of love. 5 years, but I did enjoy every minute of it.
Yes, I believe. How did you first meet homeopathy?
Look, when we came to live in Brisbane, we had lived inland. I just heard of a man practicing here in Brisbane who had studied medicine and was a homeopath, so we used him for our, general practitioner, and he did good work with my family. And then I had the opportunity a couple of years in from that, this is in the late 80s, to work with him. It was the receptionist job from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. I used to go in and open up the clinic and just, do the filing and dispense medicine. So that's what got me interested, just watching. And it was after that I decided to go and study it.
Oh, so you did see the practical effects.
Oh, yes.
And then you just got interested.
Yes. I'd not really heard much about it before then, really. And so I actually went to the college to check it out. We have a college here in Brisbane. And I decided to go and study flower essences, and because he dispensed a lot of those. And I did a subject called naturopathic practice, which was about Chinese medicine and taking pulses and tongues and Ayurveda, which was just an interesting subject. And I thought the college was okay. And so I decided to study homeopathy. And of course, once I started, I thought, oh my God.
What's that?
It was like coming home. It became my passion. Yes.
Yes, and how did you join homeopathy to your original job?
My teaching job? Mm-hmm. When you say my original job?
No, I thought you were a midwife, or is this wrong?
No, I'm not a midwife, but I am I have studied childbirth education. I have been a childbirth educator and doula, and I'm a lactation consultant, but I've not done midwifery. I'm actually a teacher by profession. My first degree was as a Bachelor of Arts with a major in English and History. So that's why I'm so interested in Materia Medica. I like to write, and I'm interested in mythology and history, those sorts of things. But I've always identified with mothering. When I was a little girl and I'd say my prayers every night and I'd ask God to give me a baby that I could take to school, like I was bad. I used to breastfeed my dolls and teddies, and I just was always interested. And when my mother, I'm the eldest of 6 girls, and when she had number 5, I used to get up at dawn and change the nappy and give the bottle. And I was 7 then. And then when she had the next baby, I was 12, and we had a 2-story house, and I would sleep downstairs on the couch and give that baby the 2 a.m. bottle, then go up to my bed. She'd take over after that. But I was babysitting for money by the time I was 11. I just was really loved to be with babies and look after babies, but I never did study midwifery. But I have gone with many women to birth, and I taught classes in childbirth education for quite a long time.
So you're originally coming from arts and went to the art of healing?
Something like that, yes. Yes.
Okay, and you enjoyed working with the lacs. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
About the lacs as a kingdom?
Lacs as a kingdom.
Well, they are, of course, about survival, and they have the issues about nurture and competition. They are a varied group of remedies, as you well know. Of course, the king is Lac Humanum, I did the proving of lac maternum. Not many people know that, but I was interested in lac humanum. In fact, when I was studying, and I had just finished my lactation consultant's qualification, and I said to my friend Debbie in class one night, I said, because she was breastfeeding, and I said, I think we should make a remedy from your milk. She said, okay, so we made it 6C. And I didn't know then that there had been a proving done in England. I didn't know that till later on when Elise Timmerman came out to Australia. And I went, oh, my goodness, there is one. And not long after that, Tina Smits wrote an article in Links where he compared lac humanum and lac maternum, and he kind of disparaged lac humanum and said lac maternum was better because it was more universal. It had the milk of 9 women. Oh, I thought, yeah, but it's got colostrum in it. And it's got the milk of a woman, 8 months, 9 months. She could have been involuting, and, that's going to be different. So I did ask him if I could do the proving, and he said yes. We met in the Himalaya in Nepal, and he gave me quite a few potencies, and I brought them back and did the proving. And yes, it's got a very different signature. There are similarities between the two, but colostrum is about incarnation, which is what Tina said it was. So it's about the getting started in life. It's about the coming into the body. It's about wanting to be happy in your skin, being in your body. It's about the to be or not to be. There's a big death wish in lac maternum, big suicidal ideation, whereas lac humanum's more a remedy about nurture, and wanting to be connected to the mother and being denied the breast. So they are very different remedies. Milk of the Wolf is one that I've had a lot of history with. It's got some amazing keynotes. It's about the red and the black. It's about being the adventurer, the interloper. There's a lovely rubric in it, desires to run at a lope. They've got great endurance, lac lupinum people. They can go all day without eating and hardly drinking, and then they will eat a lot and drink a lot. Fire is a big keynote. Yeah, like the wolf. It's very like the wolf. Lac delphinum's another remedy I've had a lot to do with. And especially it's a good remedy for birthing women. I don't know whether you know that, but there has been a long-term sociological history of women going to birth with dolphins. There was a Russian midwife called Igor Tchaikovsky. He used to take women to the Black Sea and they would birth with the dolphins. There used to be a dolphin birthing centre in New Zealand too, called Rainbow Dolphin Centre in the 70s, where women would go and birth with the dolphins. And I had this case once where this woman was very feeling unsupported, and just before she left, she's phosphorus, and I thought, I'll give it. And then she just did this ingestion. Oh my goodness, it says in a circular motion. I went, I'm going to give her lac delphinum, and she had the most beautiful birth. And so I've given it a lot since then with women just before they're about to birth, to give that one, and they have magnificent births, 200C, and they feel very supported. The dolphin is a natural midwife, which is really just lovely energy to connect to.
This is very interesting because at the moment I have a cat that is very sick, and from my nature, I'm no nurse. I'm a therapist, but I'm no nurse. I really can't do it. I'm not good in it. And I asked one of the other cats whether he could come in and do it. And now he's sitting beside this ill cat and is just creating an atmosphere of absolute coherence and harmony.
That's good. They're connected.
He's so good in it. And it's amazing to see what animals can do if they want. And so I can understand very perfect that dolphins can create a circle where every kind of stress goes away and you just feel support.
They are so at one with nature, and that's the whole thing about birth that's got, I'm very, very concerned about what's happening around birth, about reproduction in general. It's become so mechanized now. mean, Vithoulkas did that study a few years ago, which he shared with us, where he says that the most robust of people, come into this world when they are conceived as a result of a totally erotic embrace. It's true. It's an oxytocic milieu. And, you don't get that in a petri dish. When women are very disconnected, often when they're, pregnant now, they're breadwinners, they're having to work. And, of course, the whole birth thing now, if you're having a birth in a hospital, you're processed as Caesar, artificial oxytocin, and we know all of that interferes with oxytocin receptors that are being formed in the baby. And then, of course, if there's no breastfeeding, that continues on. And you've got that little window in that first 4 years to get these oxytocin receptors primed. So there has to be an oxytocic milieu for that to happen. And if they don't have it, they're on the spectrum. It's one of the biggest drivers of the autism spectrum. I mean, 40 years ago, we had 1 in 10,000, on the spectrum. Now it's 1 in 30. It's really scary. And a lot of it is coming back to what's happening around reproduction. And it worries me. It worries me greatly. I mean, I have 6 grandchildren and 5 of them have been born by cesarean. And I think, oh my goodness, I just find that kind of unbelievable, really. Women have lost their way. That whole consciousness around birth that was huge in the 60s, that's all gone. And women have kind of forgotten the blueprint. Well, some of them have. I mean, I'm talking in our Western culture, civilization.
Yeah.
It's sad.
But if you think of a cesarean, the whole microbiome in the child is changed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they come down and they need to, the nose and the mouth needs to be infiltrated with the bacteria of the mother and onto her chest. And, I mean, we know that when a baby's born, the adrenaline rush that comes at that act of birth is humongous. And, once the baby survives it and is put on the belly, it will use that adrenaline to crawl up to attach to the breast. I mean, it is a survival mechanism. They're like any mammal can go and find the teat. A baby will do that, a well baby. And the minute that it can go and find the nipple and imprint on the nipple, it calms down because it gets that oxytocin surge. And we know from research that while the baby's on the stomach and wriggling around and nuzzling in, the mother is getting peaks of oxytocin. She's just falling more and more in love with her baby. The baby's connecting with her. And so once that baby goes to the breast, the thermostat for enabling homeostasis is set for life. That whole act is really important. And the baby takes the nipple back to the junction of the soft and the hard palate. And that's where the governing and functional channels meet. And the macrocosmic orbit is initiated with that act of going to the breast. It's quite profound, really. So it's an important thing that has to happen, kind of like a rite of passage, if you like. But of course, the baby's being kept warm and getting the bacteria, but there's a lot of other things going on as well. And I connect a lot of this to the miasm theory. I mean, Hahnemann only named 3 miasms. And you say, well, why did he name 3? Well, he had lots of diseases that he could have had more miasms. I mean, Sankaran and others have extended this concept, but I don't know, there's something quite sacred about 3. I mean, 2 is a duality, in, out, up, down, stop, go, whereas a triad is about potential. And, what's aphorism number 9 about? It's all about achieving your highest potential. Yes. And Joe Rosenwag has done some interesting work, and I agree with him, and he says it's about homeostasis, anabolism, and catabolism. Of course, that's what it's all about. And, I mean, oxytocin, I think, drives SORA. I think the corticosteroids drive the psychotic miasm, and I think that insulin drives the syphilitic miasm, especially towards the end of life. You've got these 3 metabolic drivers, and oxytocin is a natural antagonist to the corticosteroids, and this whole thing starts at birth. I mean, as Harry Van Der Zee, I don't know whether you've read his books, Miasm in Labour. There's just really beautiful books that he's written where he says the baby experiences that whole idea of the miasms as it's coming into the underworld, feels the oblivion of being born, and then goes back to the breast and gets paradise regained. It's just a lovely concept, if you like. And it does mirror all of those things. And so the baby, having survived that you know, I'm surely going to die. It's a rite of passage, that syphilitic miasm, death, and then rebirth. That's what you're going to get in syphilis. Yeah, I think it's mighty. And so, you know, it's the hormone of homeostasis, oxytocin. You know, if you've got oxytocin receptors, and, you know, you can set yourself down. I mean, lacumanum is the most important remedy that we have. It's a universal remedy, and it's a layer in everybody's case. Nobody goes to the breast for about 5 years in the West. I mean, you go into the deserts of the Amazon or Wangdi Kung, and those women feed their babies that long, or they die. They can't buy formula. They don't have heating or electricity or clean water. And those women don't come into estrus again, and babies naturally are 7 or 8 years apart. They may only ever have 2 or 3 in their lifetime. And that's what the planet's supposed to have. You know, that's supposed to be the natural rhythm, and we're so out of step with it. And of course, the whole lacumanum etiology is about, I was denied the breast. I didn't get it for long enough to finish off my gut and my brain and all those things that human milk does. I mean, we grow our babies in our utero for about 9 months, and then expel them, and then they have to be at the breast for about another 4 years, and then they're done. But yes, we don't give that a lot of consideration.
Would be a total different approach. As I'm on the spectrum myself, and I have that story, I know what you're speaking about.
Really?
Yes, it's...
Have some lacumanum, Marianne, it'll fix it.
I will definitely have to try it. Yes,
yeah.
And I didn't take it yet.
Oh, it's a beautiful remedy. Best remedy to give someone before they pass over too, because it is the remedy to help you self-realise. Yeah, it's about aphorism number 9, about being the best you can be. And I came to that realisation when I was writing the book, and I went back to all the original provings, and in Sankaran's book, in prover number 13, there was a dream that he didn't put in his repertory. And it was a dream of going upstairs and having 2 gods open the door to admit this person coming in to the kingdom of heaven, if you like. And I went, oh, of course. I mean, that's what the 2 doors always represents, the admission for the monarch or the king or the queen. And lacumanum, you know, sits, you know, in the middle of that gold series. It is the king. Dreams of kings, queens, famous people, you know, that's a big keynote for lacumanum, about being at ease with royalty, if you like, because you're kind of on that same plane. You're in the kingdom of the gods. Do you know that lovely legend, Greek legend about Zeus and Hera and Hercules? Do you know that one? When, in order to get admitted to the kingdom of heaven, you had to go to the breast of Hera. And when Zeus tried to get Hercules. Okay, so Zeus wanted Hercules to join the communion of gods. He was half human. And when Hera was asleep, he tried to slip Hercules onto her breast, and it startled her, and she had a letdown, and her milk sprayed across the firmament, and that became the galaxy of stars. That's where that word comes from, because the Greek word for milk is gala.
Yeah, this I know. Yeah. I know that.
Yeah, and when we have stars, we have gala. When we have galaxy and gala, a gala performance, all the stars turn up. So it's really real big play on words. So, you know, it is about, you know, being up equal with the gods, if you like. But an interesting thing too, while I'm talking about lacumanum, is lacacinum, the milk of the ass. It's on that same gold series line, and it is more related to baryta carb. So lacumanum is the king, but lacacinum carries the king. He's the jester. He has the king's back. He's the idiot savant. And there's a lot of similarity in those 2 provings. Very interesting remedy. Lovely remedy.
It's interesting. Tell me a bit more. I did understand the thing about the oxytocin. This I know from being a vet. I know how important this is. It's the first connection, and if a baby can't make that connection, the relation between a mother and a baby is quite done. And the baby is at great risk, great risk.
Well, see, the colostrum contains so many important things the ancestral line from the microRNA that we now know is in the milk of the mother, and it carries back epigenetic threads many generations. And it's so important for that to happen with that baby. Doesn't matter what mammal it is. It's a bit like a baby is a new computer, and it has to be downloaded. And the breast milk is what does that, passes on all that stuff. And we know it's transgenerational, what will carry forward from that act.
I don't know how it is in Australia now, but I heard very bad stories from Germany where mothers had to wear masks in hospital during birth so they couldn't get enough oxygen. And the child instantly after birth was taken away. Mother could not touch child.
Is this because of the coronavirus? I don't think it's happening here. I haven't heard of anything like that. But that's so interesting because there's lots of research coming out already about the breast milk having antibodies to COVID. And I think you'll find the WHO and CDC have not given those kind of instructions. They think it's really important for the mother and baby to be connected. Look, this reminds me of what happened with AIDS. You know how there was all that panic when AIDS came out and mothers and babies were completely separated. Now, what they found in Africa was that the babies died because the women could not afford formula. They didn't have clean water. There was a lot of social stigma when it was observed that a woman wasn't breastfeeding her baby. And so, of course, that was huge as well. So there's been a lot of research done into human milk and HIV. And we know that the lactic acid, the erythropoietin, there's a few interleukins, are actually are able to deal with HIV. And so mothers now in Africa are breastfeeding their babies. As long as they take their retrovirals, everybody's happy. The babies are surviving, mothers are happy, babies are healthy. And it's the same with the COVID. I mean, we know that human milk has the ability to kill off any virus. It's the secretory IgA is 5 times higher in human milk than it is in blood. Mm-hmm. And so, no viruses get a chance to survive. I mean, if anyone's got a herpes, you put human milk on it, it's full of L-lysine, it kills the herpes. And the other thing that's really interesting, I don't know whether you know this in veterinary milk, there's a vet in the milk of other animals, but there's this dynamism in human milk. Like if a baby has a virus, say it's in daycare, it comes home and it's got a virus, it will inoculate the mother's breast with its saliva. And immediately within a few hours, the mother will begin to make antibodies to whatever that is to give to the baby to make the baby better. Or if the husband brings home something from the office and it goes around the family, the baby never gets it.
Normally not, as long as it is breastfed.
If it's breastfed, exactly. So it's, honestly, if I'd been given $1 for every time a woman breastfeeding a baby, say who's 2 or 3, he says to me, I'm so glad I'm still breastfeeding, I'd be rich, because that's when they get really sick. They're going out in society and they're getting diarrheas and they're getting colds. And, if a mother's still breastfeeding, it's so much easier for the babies to get through that. Mm-hmm. The mother can be reassured.
Did you see any correlation between leaky gut syndrome or other bowel diseases and children that were not breastfed?
Absolutely. There's lots of research on this. I mean, for a start now, they know that there's no necrotizing enterocolitis in the NICU with babies who get their mother's colostrum and their mother's milk. And just that one little change is, because it's cost effective, this is where these things come in. It's tens of thousands of dollars to try and save a baby's life. But no, any diseases that you want to name that are associated with the gut, breastfeeding is protective against it. And certainly childhood diabetes, it's linked to drinking cow's milk. Diabetes in women later on is, they're less likely to get it if they breastfeed, less likely to have high blood pressure, so less likely to have breast cancer. There's a complex in human milk called Hamlet, It was discovered in 2004. It's human alpha-lactalbumin made lethal to tumour cells, so that Hamlet, and it's the oleic acid and secretory IgA combination, and it kills tumour cells dead without touching the other cells. So it's a very powerful anti-carcinogenic agent, which is why lacumanum is cancer miasm remedy. It's definitely cancer miasm remedy. Tell me something as a vet. I have read this and I have observed it, that when an animal is given the milk of another animal, it will have an episode of apnea because the milk is not species specific.
An episode of?
Apnea, not being able to breathe.
Yeah, apnea, okay. The only thing I know is if a little animal, a pet, baby animal, gets milk of another animal, it will get it. Definitely. And it will never be the personality it should be.
Okay. I have read that there have been studies done that there are episodes of apnea, and I've been able to translate and connect that with Kalp-Foss. So we know from studies that when a baby is drinking formula, it has asynchronous sucks because it can't suck and swallow and breathe at the same time, whereas a baby at the breast can do that because the milk is species specific. And so when a baby is having those kind of difficulties at the breast and not attaching well, it really comes back to the baby reacting to bovine proteins that are in the mother's milk from her diet. And you just have to remove all the cow's milk from the mother's diet, and then the baby will settle more at the breast and won't have those episodes anymore. Sometimes the baby will even bite because it's stressed. It's a sign of tubercular miasm. And one of the other clinical signs I've observed over the years that if a baby has hiccups in utero, it's a sign that they're a Kalp-Foss baby and they're already getting water brush because they're reacting to the bovine fragments that's in the amniotic fluid, and they'll come out, they'll be little Kalp-Foss babies.
Very interesting. So from your point of view, a mother should go for a vegan diet?
No, never, not when you're breastfeeding. Eat lots of protein. But look, 30% of people don't tolerate cow's milk. You know, they're the tubercular types in our community. They're the mothers who perhaps need to just have lots of nuts and seeds and bones of oily fish and dark leafy greens and take a supplement. They could maybe try camel milk or goat milk or some of the other milks. In fact, we know when you study milk and look at the profiles that the milk of the donkey is the one that's closest to human milk, which is interesting because lacacin and lacumanum are very similar. The cow's milk is not anything like human milk. It's got 3 times the protein. It's only got half the lactose. It's not a very good substitute, really.
It's not a good substitute, no.
No, it creates a lot of trouble. But, you know, it's a good food. I mean, yogurt and cheese and things like that, they're a good part of it, you know, a good mixed diet. But if you're tubercular miasm, really strongly tubercular miasm, that's when you'll get trouble. But, you know, the other miasms are usually okay with it. So it's just a case-by-case thing. I don't like to be very general. Mothers need about 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day in their diet when they're breastfeeding. And they need plenty of protein, plenty of fat, not very many simple carbohydrates, because when they have a lot of simple carbs, it sends the lactose level up in the milk. And a new baby doesn't cope with that because their enzymes aren't up to speed.
Okay, I understand. I'm just thinking of a mother cat that is living in the village, and if she can't cope, she comes up the hill and sees whether I have some food left over for her. And when she has baby, she likes to have yogurt. And if she doesn't have babies, she doesn't want a yogurt.
Yogurt, that's interesting.
But
maybe it's just a calcium thing. I don't know. Do other animals need plenty of calcium for them to make milk. Because in human milk, it's calcium and manganese are the two cofactors for making milk. So it is important for calcium to be in the diet.
Yes, the easiest way to get calcium is to have a real good green smoothie.
Well, you know, cows get all their calcium from grass. I mean, go figure.
Yeah, but they have the bacteria to really digest it.
Mm. Yeah, well, maybe that's why she wants the yogurt, because she's looking for the bacteria.
Maybe.
Mm. Mm.
So,
I mean, that's the other thing about human milk. Human milk has got, we know now it's 120 oligosaccharides in it that are, you only get in human milk. You don't get them in any other milk. And their only job is to provide sugar or food for the bacteria in the gut. You know, it's such an important part of getting established and getting that microbiome established is to have the milk of the mother.
So that would point out that the microbiome of the humans are more complex than the others.
Possibly, but we don't know that. We haven't done enough. It's such an emerging area of research.
We can't research now.
Needs to be more research. But what, you know, some hospitals now are doing with babies who are born by elective cesarean is that they're seeding them with, you know, they're getting vaginal swabs and, you know, seeding the baby's mouth and nose with the mother's bacteria to try and get that going. The other thing that's interesting is we know from research that human milk has actually quite a lot of different bacteria in it. And you kind of think of milk as not having any bacteria, but it's got staph in it and E. coli and candida. It's got everything. And we think that that's important part of, you know, getting the microbiome established, you know. We've got all of that stuff in our body. As long as it's in balance, it's fine. I mean, you need E. coli to make your vitamin K.
Yeah. And if you think in our corona times, what are doing people? Disinfecting everything, disinfecting the hands and anything all the time. And I just wonder what that does to the microbiome.
Yeah, we just do wonder.
It's creating immune deficiency, definitely.
No, of course, now putting the masks on is going to make it even worse.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have compulsory mask wearing at the moment?
They've established it now in Victoria because the coronavirus has taken off there again. In Queensland, where we live, we're just like touch wood in a bubble. Mm-hmm. Our Premier has closed all the borders and they're not letting people in. And so community transmission here is 0 at the moment. So that's good. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure they're going to start telling us we have to start wearing masks. So, you know, there's a lot of other reasons behind all of this. I mean, I don't think this is the venue for talking about it, but yeah, there's something going on.
Are you at the moment allowed to travel? Or is Australia
not interstate, some of the borders are closed. You can't go, but we can travel around here, okay, yes. In our state, we can travel wherever we want to, yes.
In the state, but not to the other states and not to other countries?
No, not to other countries. If you come back, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks in self-isolation and pay for it yourself. Mm-hmm. If you go to Victoria now, you wouldn't be allowed back in without being isolated. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm.
What happened?
I don't know.
What happened here on a global scale? So for the milks we have, is there anything you want to point out, especially?
Well, as Kent said, you know, the lacs are our most important remedies. You know, I would just like to give them a plug. I think they're our most important remedies, especially the human lacs, lac maternum and lac humanum. I think that we can overlook the importance of those remedies, especially with depression and suicide, self-harm, myriad of gut problems, you know. I've got a the thing that I do with mothers when they're weaning, if for any reason they have to wean early to go back to work or the baby starts to wean, is I actually hand Sakasa a remedy up to 7C of her milk so that she has that, 7C. How to do that's on my website, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, energetically, you know, that's still available to the child. 7C is a good potency, I think, for that healing of the gut. So I would use Lacumanum quite low. It's a sarcode, and I think people forget that the lacs are sarcodes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they are there to prime organs and systems in the body. That's what their job is to do. We get a bit caught up in the mental, emotional aspects of remedies, which are still important, but their biggest work, you know, a low potency of Lacumanum is rich in oxytocin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The hormone of love. And it's kind of interesting that, you know, most mammals, you know, well, they feed them in odd places. I mean, horses and sheep and elephants will stand to feed their babies. You know, dogs and cats will lie down. But we lift our babies up to our heart chakra to feed them. We lift them up, we elevate them, and they're in the heart chakra, which is, you know, that feeling of love, and the oxytocin goes really well together. And of course we give the left side and then right side. I mean, left, right, left, right. I mean, that's all about priming the DNA, you know, left, right, left, right, left, right. I mean, they work on that level, that, you know, that really deep level. The milks, you know, they influence DNA. They pass on epigenetic tags, you know, that's how important they are.
I just remember a little cat that was thrown away by her mother, and I got him when he was about 10 days old, a bit ill, umbilicitis, things like that. The mother thought she can't handle him, she wanted him to die. And that little cat, I did carry around on my heart all the time because I wanted him to live. And till now, he's 2 years old now. When he doesn't feel good, he comes and with his ears, he goes to my heart and just listens to the heartbeat. And then he comes down.
Mm.
And he really puts his ear absolutely here to listen to the heartbeat.
Yeah. Well, we know that in some of the very third world countries where they can't afford humidity cribs, I mean, babies who are very premature, you know, they call it the kangaroo mother care phenomenon, and they put them, you know, in a little pouch between their mother's breasts, and they incubate the babies here. And I mean, that's the listening to the heart and being in rhythm with the mother. And those babies do quite well, you know, they do quite well. That being connected to the mother is so important. I mean, are you aware of the work done by Harlow, the researcher in America who worked with the monkeys and took the monkeys away from their mothers?
No.
It was done in the 60s, and it was so horrific that they never repeated it, but they made wire cages as replica monkeys. Some of them they put cloth on, and they just put the monkeys, one monkey, one mother, in a cage, and they would put milk through the breast area every 3 or 4 hours so the baby could feed. Those monkeys were so traumatized from it that they couldn't relate anywhere, and they forced some of them to breed by having them raped. They're still working with those monkeys. They're many generations down now, and they are still affected from that. You know, that's how important all of this is, that whole connection with the mother. So I have big concerns about what's going on with babies and mothers being separated, like you talk about from COVID. I mean, that's really bad. But then, of course, you've got all this surrogacy thing that's happening now where people, you know, are having another mother, you know, breed a baby and then hand it over. You know, does that have implications? You know, when we buy eggs from women and hire uteruses, does that have implications for babies? We don't know. We don't know what the consequences will be, and whether from an intergenerational exchange, from what this ancestral DNA that gets passed down, what's going to happen with all of that?
we are going to experience that.
Yeah, we won't know for a little while yet what the implications of all of that will be. Yeah. Yeah.
But it could be that it results in more violence and less ethics.
Maybe. Maybe. Yeah. Our ability to breed as a species is definitely suffering, taking a dent. With infertility's through the roof. People are struggling to reproduce, turning more and more to technology to reproduce. Where that will end, I really don't know. It's certainly interfering with the oxytocic milieu that I believe is needed for, well, as Vituka said, it's for that robust, individual. It's a hormone of resilience, oxytocin. We've got to be resilient. We've got to be able to have a reset button. Functional disturbance then leads to pathological change. And so if you've got a good reset button, your functional disturbance, well, you can overcome that and settle down. It could be as simple as a hug or someone talking to you, or it doesn't have to be a remedy.
I was just thinking of what I heard from the homeopaths in Japan, how they struggle with infertility and all the diseases around conception and birth, and how complicated it all got after the nuclear disasters and Fukushima, and of course Hiroshima and the plutonium bomb in.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Gosh.
And as the ethics of the Japanese are, they don't bring it to the surface, but in the country, it's a huge topic.
Yeah, it's very sad, very sad. So I honestly don't know.
I was just thinking whether that remedy would be needed there.
I think there needs more than a remedy to fix that.
They had a lot of experience with oleandrum, and Rosina Sonnenschmidt worked a lot on it. And as I talked with her lately, but we didn't talk about lacumanum and remedies like that. Maybe we should think that over again.
I don't know. It's very, you sort of, when you're down in the Antipodes, you're sort of on the edge of the world. You're not kind of in among it. Sometimes I wish I did live in Europe, where you could kind of mix with people more and have that chance more to talk and share your perspective. But it is such a long way away. Yeah.
And I thought of Kate Birch, who did the einkorn proving in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
And when I recall her proving and I hear you talking about lacumanum, it's quite interrelated.
Yeah. And
it's very interesting.
I mean, see, lacumanum, human milk contains in it at a mineral level everything that's on the earth. Even the trace minerals. That's why you can say it's such a universal remedy. I have down in my clinic a poster. It's got 2 columns, and one says, have you ever wondered what's in formula and in human milk?
Mm-hmm.
And in the formula column, it's quite short. It's about what you'd read on the side of a tin of formula. The other column is over 2 meters long. You just look at it and go, well, that's just what we know from research so far. And you just look at that and think, my goodness me, it's no contest.
Mm-hmm.
It's so complex. I mean, did you know that human milk has stem cells that are pluripotent?
Yes, this I need.
Yeah, not many people know that, and they certainly don't talk about it or use it, or.
Maybe this is the real divine power in the lacumanum, in the homeopathic remedy. That's the creative power in it, I think.
It is. Well, the whole thing about creation is so profound, and I mean, the milk is just sort of what finishes that off. I mean, I always think that I mean, the whole thing around conception, you know, you get the sperm and the egg, and then you get that first cell division, you know, and you get a vesica Pisces, and then you get 4, and then you get 8. That's all the platonic solids. It's very sacred, really. And then you get that elongation, turns inside out, becomes a torus. And that's a, you know, where a unified field can self-organize. I mean, come on, you know, this is just amazing what happens.
Yes, and then the first organ that starts is the heart.
Heart.
And still we don't know why it starts beating.
It's because of the oxytocin, maybe. You know, it just, well, they say the heart-mind, you know, there's certainly a connection between the heart and the mind. Actually, I can remember once, I don't know whether you heard of Dan Winter. He's a physicist who's done a lot of work with the Heart Math Foundation.
Yeah, I know. I'm a heart math trainer, actually.
Ah, right. So we were in this room, hundreds of people. Someone out the front was connected up to an EEG, and you could see it. Mm-hmm. And you could see the waves. And he said, okay, I now want you all to send love to this person. And we did. And honestly, it was a perfect sine wave. The heartbeat was, it was amazing. It was amazing. Just think, oh, that's the power of thought, the power of intention, you know. That's oxytocin for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you can do a lot of things when you really train your heart rate variability by your mindset and by breathing.
Yes. I mean, the other thing that interests and intrigues me about oxytocin is that when you look at the molecule written down, it's in the shape of a cobra.
Mm-hmm. I have and to look that up again.
Yeah, the snake and the dragon are in every myth in the planet. Yeah. Why is that? Why is that? It's all related to oxytocin and its connection to DNA.
The only thing I can tell you about that is the more resilient I got during my life, the easier it was to see vipers.
Yeah.
I'm the one who breaks for vipers. I should write that at the back of my car because nobody else does. But I always was a bit scared of them.
Well, it pays to be a bit wary, especially in Australia. We have terrible snakes here, shocking snakes.
Yeah, the mountain vipers here are very poisonous, and you can survive them, but you have to be quick.
Mm.
And lately, I saw a baby viper, quite freshly hatched, and I was smiling because it was so nice how it was crawling. And the other day I saw a very big one coming from the compost, crawling down the hill. And I just was amazed by its power. I could feel the tonus in the musculature. And I just thought, wow, something has happened in myself. Now I'm not afraid of snakes anymore.
Good. It's your feminine wisdom coming to the fore.
The older I get. The older I get, yes.
Yeah. I mean, snakes in, you know, dream symbology is all about being connected to that, you know, inner intuition, and some people get a bit scared about them. I say, oh no, it's a good dream. Because it's big in Lacumanum, the dream of snakes.
Really?
Yeah, especially coloured snakes.
Can you remember a special dream of snakes by a client?
Oh, so many of them tell me about dreams of snakes. I can't remember anything too special. But in Sankaran's proving, quite a lot of the provers had very interesting snake dreams.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I have to read that again.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about the divine, the omnipotent, the good side, the doors that open at the beginning and the end of life. By my cat. By all the legs. And there's an opposite. Duality always has an opposite. And when I talked to Kate, She said the opposite to einkorn is glyphosate, which is all about death and decay and alteration.
Yeah.
And the worst things one can imagine.
Yeah.
When you think of a duality to the legs, what would that be? The other end of it.
Maybe alcohol.
Oh, that is interesting.
Because alcohol is an oxytocin dampener. Aggravated from alcohol is a big keynote in Lac Humanum. The desire for alcohol is a big keynote in Lac Maternum. Lac Maternum, one of the big keynotes is the desire for drugs and things that are no good for the body, especially caffeine. And etiology, never well since being drugged, is a big etiology for Lac Maternum. And of course, you look at the number of drugs that are used at birth now. You know, when a baby is born, it's you know, the whole thing is medicalized, and it's sort of it's interesting because when a baby comes out and the head emerges and then the body emerges, there's this reflex where the baby will bring its head back and open the mouth and fill the lungs with air, and it's like a pair of bellows opens up, and of course then you get your pulmonary circulation, and the placenta starts to not be so important anymore, and the lungs take over. And it's boron that actually is the trigger for that oxygenation. That's why borax is such a big remedy for babies with, that lack of oxygenation and that not being settled in the body, same as Lac Maternum. And did you know that boron is a trigger for airbags in cars?
No.
Which is really, it's quite interesting because that's what is the trigger for here. And maybe that's why Eve ate an apple, because apples are rich in boron. I always thought that little mythical connection was interesting. But certainly alcohol has a very destructive energy, and even more so now, among our young people, where it's almost like mindless. I mean, gosh, we thought we drank a lot when we were young, but it's nothing like, and it's heavy spirits now too, more so.
It's not only beer anymore.
No.
I was just thinking of a friend of mine. She was in hospital when she was very, very small child, few months old, and got a barbiturate anesthesia at that time. And she still feels absolutely lamed in a few situations of her life and just can't move forward, can't decide, can't do anything. You think that could be a Lac Maternum layer?
Could maybe be. Lameness is not something I kind of associate. There's a lot of vertigo with Lac Maternum.
She said it's like walking in tar. She can't move forward. She can't decide. She can't do something for herself.
So she's stuck.
Totally stuck.
Have you read Tina Smitz's books on the 8 universal layers? Because when he talks about stuck, it's actually Anacardiaceae. It's Rhus tox. And Rhus tox is complementary to Lac Maternum and Lac Humanum. Certainly, I see it coming up all the time. Because, it's a remedy for herpes, and herpes you need L-lysine, which the milks are very rich in. So there is that connection, and as he says, there is a past life connection. Actually, I'll tell you an interesting story. It's a patient. She was having a baby, 4th baby, and was going to be a home birth. And she said that she was very connected to the baby in utero, and she said, I feel that in its past life, this person was killed in a war, had a violent death. I think head blown off, she said, head blown off. Anyway, so she had a little girl, and she was lovely, and she was breastfed. And I didn't really see her, didn't need to see her, but when she started to crawl with a hitch. So she'd crawl and like the hip would come up, and it was Rhus tox. So I gave her Rhus tox. And within a week, she came out with a kind of a herpetic all on this side of the face where the mother had envisaged in the last past life that the head had been blown away. Like that to me was just like, nah, there is definitely a connection. So Rhus-Tox is a remedy I use a lot with the lax, and to deal with that stuckness. It allows that being able to go forward. So maybe I would start there.
I will talk with her.
Mm. All our remedies are good.
Okay, Patricia, anything you think that is important to say to our listeners?
Well,
that they
yes,
really should remember?
Yeah, that everything that happens in the primal period sets the foundation for what comes next. It's not something that can be glossed over. I mean, the way we make babies and gestate them and birth them and then nourish them, means that later on it's going to set them up. There was a very big, long-ranging epidemiological study done in Brazil that was published about a decade ago, where they followed thousands from birth to their 30s, and in every aspect that you wanted to nominate, they were healthier, they were more successful, they were more intelligent, they were earning more money, just like the ramifications were huge. And that all came back to everything having gone really well in that early part of their life. So it's not easy, the breastfeeding rates need to come up. I mean, I went to England last year and I was horrified when I did a bit of research to find that at 6 months, only 1% of mothers are breastfeeding in the United Kingdom. They start out at 80%. And in Australia now, it's dropped down to 15%. Used to be 30%. But 97% of our mothers will feed in hospital. By 6 months, they've dropped to 30%. That's, WHO says feed at least 6 months, true, but, 2 years is desirable and longer is even better. But it's, I don't know. I used to think it'd be good to make formula from human milk, but I'm not so keen on that now, knowing what I know about microRNA and the individual epigenetic imprint from mother to child. I think we just need, as a community, to have a conversation about how we can help mothers and babies, get it together. I mean, 30 years ago when the Dalai Lama was in Australia, he's been here lots, and he was on a TV show one night on a panel, and the compere said, Your Holiness, what's most wrong with the world? And he said that the world does not value the mother-child bond. And I went, oh, he said a mouthful there. And it's true. We don't. We just, it's like Toys R Us. You can just go and buy a baby and pick the sex and a whole bunch of stuff. And when it's going to
just some things where you can't cheat.
Just getting it done right is worth it. And, if you're only going to have 1 or 2 babies in a lifetime, that would be so much better. But, we have to make it easy for mothers to be able to still work and have careers. We need to have creches in workplaces and flexible being able to work from home and job sharing. And governments need to recognise that the GDP contribution that human milk makes to the economy is important. That you've got fewer impacts on the health budget, and all these things are very complex.
Yes, and having a baby is a project that starts long before conception.
Oh yeah, at least 3 months. And I tell the mother and the father to both be on folate before they make a baby, because the father gives half the genetic material, especially if it's a tubercular miasm couple. It's very important, because we're getting a lot more midline abnormalities now, a lot more palate problems and tongue ties. And, the baby with the tongue tie, it's hard for it to breastfeed. Mm-hmm. And that could have been fixed just by having enough folate on board at the time of conception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's been lovely talking with you.
Thank you. So let's just take the message together. Is having a baby is a project that you really have to work on. You have to be precise. You have to be an adult person to really do it. And it's
most desirable.
And it's a dedication.
It is a big commitment, and it's a commitment for life. You know, you don't stop being a parent, but those first 4 or 5 years are really critical. Yeah. Really, really critical.
And you need time for it.
You do, the time and the space. Yeah.
Time and the space, and
it's the most important thing you ever do, because at the end of the day, we're just a sophisticated virus, and if we don't pass on our genetic material, we haven't done our job.
Yeah. So maybe we should be more afraid about the violence we create with all these artificial things around creating humans than we should be afraid about the virus.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting perspective, yeah. Yes, it's more long-term. It's not such an immediate kind of thing. And people, I mean, what we've done is we've swapped mortality for morbidity, and I don't think people quite appreciate the subtleties that's involved in that.
Yeah, and we still don't face impermanence.
But you know, Lakshmi Manam fixes everything.
Yeah, I will ponder more about that. Definitely, you inspire.
Good.
Especially as I know that this is one of the parts that are still a story to me.
Yeah. That's good.
Patricia, it was nice talking to you. And I would like to have you on a round table with Kate Birch. It's a bad thing with the time zones, I know, but maybe we can manage.
We'll think about it, yeah. Kate and I have worked together before on the ICH committee, so we've never met, but we're sort of connected via these kind of media.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
It would be good, and have Rosina Sonnenschmidt in it. It may be one of the Japanese homeopaths. Okay. I would like that.
Okay, that would be good.
Okay, let me work on it.
Good. Nice talking to you, and I'll talk to you again.
Till next time, I would say.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.